Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the most common and terrible advice people tend to give you when you're struggling with porn addiction. We'll go through 6 of the worst pieces of advice that people give to porn addicts, and why they simply don't work. Think of this as a guide to what not to do when you're trying to kick your addiction. And trust me, we're going to absolutely bust some myths, have a good laugh, and give you some real strategies that actually make sense. Number 1. When the craving hits, get up and do something. Go for a walk or call a friend. Let's start with this classic advice. Just distract yourself. Go for a walk, do some push-ups, or call a friend. I mean, sure man, it's great to get active. But when you're in the middle of a craving, it's like your brain has already hijacked your body. Telling a porn addict to just take a walk when they're battling urges is like telling someone drowning in the ocean to just swim. It's a little more complicated than that. Your addiction is tied to dopamine, and your brain craves that hit. You might be able to distract yourself for a bit, but the craving often comes back even stronger. You're not actually dealing with the root of the issue. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken arm. It's not going to fix anything. So instead of trying to distract yourself, confront the craving head on. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What am I really craving? It's not always pornography itself, but the escape or the relief from something deeper, like stress or loneliness. Get curious about your triggers and learn to manage those emotions in a healthier way, through journaling or mindfulness practices. Number 2, meditate to kill your cravings. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to bash meditation. It's actually a great practice and it helps a lot of people. But for some reason, people act like meditation is the silver bullet that will magically solve all your problems, including porn addiction. But the issue is that, for most people, meditation takes time to master. And when you're deep in the throes of addiction, simply sitting still and observing your thoughts can be really difficult. If you're not trained in mindfulness, it can feel like you're just sitting there, getting more and more frustrated while your urges grow stronger. Meditation is not a quick fix. It's more like a long-term strategy. If you're new to it, don't force it. That won't help you. Number 3, brute force through willpower. Ah yes, the classic just use willpower advice. You know, the one where people tell you to man up and just stop being weak. Yeah, because nothing motivates someone struggling with addiction more than being called weak, right? Willpower alone is not enough to quit a drug addiction. It's not just about making a choice in the moment. It's about breaking a deeply ingrained habit that has likely been reinforced for years. It's not something you can brute force your way through when your prefrontal cortex is broken. Also, beating yourself up when you fail, that's just adding fuel to the fire. The more guilt and shame you pile onto yourself, the more you reinforce the cycle of addiction, because you'll likely turn to porn as an escape from those negative emotions. Instead of relying on willpower, focus on creating an environment that supports your recovery. Use tools like accountability partners or porn blockers to help you stay on track. And most importantly, practice self-compassion. If you slip up, it doesn't mean you're weak or a failure. It just means you're human. Remember, it's all part of the recovery process. Number 4, reading about the harmful consequences of porn. Have you ever heard the advice, just read all the terrible things porn does to your brain and that'll make you stop? Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Listen, we've all read the studies about how porn messes with your dopamine system, hijacks your brain, and damages your libido. And sure, it's important to know the facts, but constantly bombarding yourself with negative information just reinforces the idea that you're broken or doomed. It can make you feel even more hopeless. And ironically, you might turn to porn as a way to cope with those feelings of despair. So instead of focusing on the doom and gloom, focus on the positive changes you're making by quitting. Celebrate small wins, like going a few days without watching porn or learning a new coping skill. Recovery is about progress, not perfection. The more you focus on what's going right, the easier it will be to keep moving forward. Number 5, quit your addiction. It'll force you to have a social life and get real sex. This one is interesting to say the least. People might say, hey, if you quit pornography, you'll be so bored that you'll have no choice but to go out, meet people, and have real sex. But here's the reality. Quitting your addiction doesn't automatically turn you into some social butterfly or Casanova. If anything, in the early stages of quitting, you might feel even more withdrawn or anxious because you've lost your go-to coping mechanism. Plus, quitting porn doesn't solve underlying issues like social anxiety or fear of intimacy, which might be what's holding you back in the first place. Sure, you can use the time and energy you'd spend on porn to work on building confidence and improving your social skills, but don't expect quitting porn to magically fix everything. You can work on quitting porn and building a social life at the same time. Start small. Go out to events, join a club, or even just meet up with someone you like. Building meaningful connections takes time, and that's okay. Number 6, rewarding yourself with gifts when you don't watch porn. Okay, so here's another piece of advice that sounds pretty good in theory, but can backfire big time. On the surface, this seems like a smart idea, right? Positive reinforcement and all that. But here's the problem. When you set up rewards like this, you're still placing a huge emphasis on pornography. It makes the whole process feel like a sacrifice, as if you're giving up something valuable. And that just makes porn seem even more tempting. Plus, let's be real. Most addicts would rather watch porn every day than get some random gift. Best case scenario, you would just fall into another addiction if it worked, without even fixing the first one. Stop treating your addiction like some precious thing you're giving up in exchange for a reward. Shift your mindset. Do you really think something that makes you depressive and anxious is worth keeping? Something that's ruining your life and sentence you to eternal loneliness? Really? You're not sacrificing porn. You're freeing yourself from it. Celebrate your progress with things that genuinely bring you joy, but don't frame it as a reward for not watching pornography. Focus on building a life that feels rewarding on its own, without the need for external bribes. Alright, my friend, this is the end of the video. As I said before, quitting your addiction isn't about following cookie-cutter advice or using willpower to white-knuckle your way through. It's about understanding yourself, learning from your triggers, and progressively shift your mindset to make porn irrelevant. If you've been struggling with quitting, don't beat yourself up. Try to implement some of the advice I gave you, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next ones. If you like this video, you can smash that like button. And if you've something to share, tell us the worst advice you've ever heard to quit your addiction and why it didn't work. Alright, stay strong, talk to you soon.